smell that? Hockey. Hey, I'm Steve Dangle, and the return of hockey is just around the corner, and if you're a Leaf fan, that's a fun thing because the Leafs are in the return to hockey. And there hasn't been any hockey for like 5 months, and there were 70 games that happened before the break. And if you don't remember what happened, I don't blame you. Which is why I'm doing this video series, 70 in 7, where I break up the Leafs' 70 games so far into 7 videos. That's 10 game segments. We've already done games 1 through 10, so today we're gonna look at games 11 through 20. Let's go. We left off with a rather tumultuous loss. The Leafs lost 4-3 in overtime against the Columbus Blue Jackets, and it was because Mitch Marner took a penalty in overtime that resulted in a penalty shot that resulted in the OT winner. Kyle Dubas was seen sort of heatedly talking to Brendan Shanahan in the management box, and it looked like he was talking about a decision Mike Babcock had made at the beginning of that overtime. Luckily, after that loss, the Leafs had plenty of time to cool down, and by that I mean they had another back-to-back, the bane of their early season existence. In this one, in Game 11, oh, no big deal. It's just against the Boston Bruins, and it's Michael Hutchinson in net. You know who made their Leafs debut? He was a defenseman, Kevin Gravel. That's a name you might be like, oh yeah, okay, and he got mysteriously called up a few times. He's had a bit of an on and off NHL career, but the Leafs signed him, they gave him a chance, and this was the first game here, but unfortunately he only got 3 games in because he's battling Crohn's. If you want to read more about him and his story, there's a great feature on him in The Athletic from a few months ago, but this was his Leaf debut, the second half of a back-to-back against the Boston Bruins. And I mentioned it's the second half of a back-to-back and against the Boston Bruins, and Michael Hutchinson is in net, but the Leafs and Hutch actually kept it really tight after 40. It was a 2-2 tied hockey game. Unfortunately, Brett Ritchie and, can you believe it, Per Lindholm, remember that guy, scored, and Boston gets the 4-2 victory. The Leafs' 12th game of the season, they hosted the San Jose Sharks, meaning they hosted Patrick Marleau, making his return to Toronto after making his return to San Jose. With the Sharks up 1-0, the Leafs are struggling mightily to get anything going. Finally, though, with 3 seconds to go in the second period, Jake Muzzin finally gets a goal, ties the thing up at once. With about 5.5 to go in the third period, the Leafs on the rush, fumble it a little bit, but William Nylander corrals it, flings it over to Morgan Rielly, snipes over Martin Jones, huge celly, huge goal for him. You knew the Leafs needed this game, and they got it. Ilya Mikheyev getting a goal, 3-1, Austin Matthews, 4-1, 4-1 victory. The Leafs defense hasn't exactly been their strength so far this season, but this was a light night for Freddie, stopping just 16 of 17. But hey, guess what? You like back-to-backs? Yet another game against the Montreal Canadiens on the second half of a back-to-back on the road with travel. Michael Hutchinson in net in this one. He had a solid game against Boston. What'll he do against Montreal? Let's see. Sort of similarly to how the game went against the San Jose Sharks, the Leafs are down. They're actually down 2-0 instead of 1-0, and Jake Muzzin gets the Leafs on the board. Andreas Johnsson actually ties it at 2s. And so they head into the third tie game. They can do this. And Joel Armia scores 7 seconds into the third. 7. You can blame Michael Hutchinson all you want. If the other team even gets a shot on goal 7 seconds into the period, it's a little bit your fault. Hutch stops 33 of 38, and the Leafs fall to Montreal again. I was getting chirped for saying that the Leafs are going to win the 2020 Stanley Cup. And let me tell you, I said it because you look at the past 2 Stanley Cup finals, it involved a lot of teams we didn't expect to see there, including the St. Louis Blues, who were in last place on January 3rd. This is now the 1000th time I said it. You get a new car! I said I thought the Leafs were going to win the Stanley Cup because this league is goofy, not because of any evidence that this team deserves it. You got a month to change my mind before we really need to seriously start looking at other solutions. But then, Game 14, a home game against the Washington Capitals, and there's a little bit of build-up here. Travis Dermott finally making his return to the Toronto Maple Leafs lineup, and the big story heading into this one, Alex Ovechkin, a little bit of shade. The juicy quote was Alex Ovechkin is like, well, this young group the Maple Leafs have, they're going to have to play different if they want to win. And a lot of people said, well, he would know. And Austin Matthews even said, well, you know, he would know. And people took that as shade. No, Alex Ovechkin would literally know. He's a guy who played a certain way his whole career. He made some adjustments as well his team did, and then they won the Stanley Cup in 2018. What's not to get about that? And Austin Matthews processed that He wasn't like, oh, Ovechkin. He knows that they just won the cup. But funny enough, those two would be the best players on the ice. It was a back and forth game. Austin Matthews with a pair of goals and an assist in this one. He had 11 goals in this, just his 14th game. Alex Ovechkin ties the game, so it goes to overtime. Once again, just like a few games prior against Columbus, Mitch Marner takes a high sticking penalty this time. Washington gets the power play. It's 4-on-3. It's Ovechkin. It's a death sentence. Bang! He gets his 4th point on the Capitals' 4th goal. Caps win in overtime. And a few people pointed this out. I think you should go back and watch my entire LFR video because it's just full of breadcrumbs and Easter eggs. Because this video, right before the game, mere hours before the game, is when I found out my wife is pregnant. So a lot of people were freaking out and reaming the Leafs out, and I just didn't have it in me that day. And of course, that was so long ago that I have a baby that's nearly a month old upstairs as I shoot this. Maybe I should be quiet. This video does deserve a fist bump of some sort. Nah, I gotta reserve those for wins. Fine, I'm gonna raise my hands in the air. October's over! Yeah! We did it! We made it! This awful, godforsaken month! 6, 5, and 3, which is above Batman 500. 2 more losses than wins, but a winning record. The NHL, catch the fever! Game 15, this one on the road against the Philadelphia Flyers. Kind of an ugly one. The Leafs are down. Jason Spezza, though, scoring his first goal as a Toronto Maple Leaf. Can you believe it took until Game 15? I can, because he was in and out of the lineup. But Spezza makes it 2-2. Travis Sanheim scores for Philly. Mitch Marner scores for the Leafs. It's 3-3. We head into overtime, and that solves nothing, but wow, was Freddie Andersen busy. After overtime, shots were 40-26 in favor of the Flyers. That's not good. But it's okay. Freddie's night was almost over. And by almost over, I mean there was an 11-round shootout. So basically, Freddie Andersen stopped 40 in-game shots and then faced nearly a dozen breakaways. That sounds like a fun night. There were 22 shooters in this one. Only 3 of them score. And the one who scored last, Andreas Johnsson, giving the Toronto Maple Leafs the shootout win against the Flyers. And I know in my previous video there was that little rant, listen, a win's a win, but at Game 15, they're not starting to feel that comfortable. You need the 2 points, but the Leafs are kind of getting outplayed a lot. Game 16, at home hosting the LA Kings. This game actually wasn't that eventful, but heading into it, the big news was John Tavares, after breaking his finger, would be making his return to the Leafs lineup. Problem with that is, early in the game, Jeff Carter bulldozes Alexander Kerfoot with a huge hit right to the chops. He got patched up, he eventually wore the face thing, and he would play the next few games, but as you'll see later in the series, he did eventually have to sit out. But Kerfoot actually did score in this game after Alex Iafallo put the Kings on the board with a power play goal. Then Austin Matthews, yet again, and William Nylander score about 30 seconds apart. Leafs beat the Kings on home ice 3-1. Game 17, the Leafs are hosting the Vegas Golden Knights, and for some reason they always seem to have crazy games. You could have chalked this one up to another, oh, the Leafs didn't look all that good, but it was just a goalie duel, and it was such an unlikely one, because it was Freddie Andersen, who's been fine, but not exactly Vezina candidate level yet, against Malcolm Subban. That should be a Money in the Bank win for the Leafs. No offense, it's just Vegas's backup. Sure enough, it's a 0-0 tie heading into the third, and the icebreaker is scored by Max Pacioretty, who you might notice doesn't play for the Leafs. The Leafs do get a power play, and Matthews just like just a rabid dog. You can tell he wants one in the worst way, and he's trying and getting stopped, and he's trying and missing, he's trying, it's getting blocked, and then he finally gets it. Woo! A laser beam past Malcolm Subban ties the game at 1. Huge selly. You'd think they just won a playoff series, which, that sounds good. And the game goes to overtime, and guess who gets the game-winning goal? Mr. Broken Finger himself, John Tavares. Finger looks okay. Seriously, it was a duel. The shots were 38-37 in this one. Ridiculous.
You ever been to the TFC game and had one of the Italian sausages there? They're unfrickin' believable. Unbelievable.
If this game was Dragon Ball Z, and Austin Matthews is Goku, and the Vegas Golden Knights are Frieza, they just killed Krillin.
And Matthews stood there, shaking. Rocks are starting to levitate. Sparks are flying. Thunder is cracking in the sky. His hair goes blonde. And even his teammates are terrified. They're like, just give him the puck. And they stop it and he says, again. And they stop it and he says, rips it. Sally, bump into the glass. Say hi to that nice lady sitting in the front row as the planet Namek trembles.
It was watch anime or do homework. Which one do you think I chose?
Austin Matthews with the power play shift of the season. Seek and destroy mode. Austin. Yes.
If you've been confused as to why why am I talking now like I'm in an anime? If you've been confused as to why Leaf fans have been frustrated so far this season, it's because we know exactly what this team is capable of. And what they are capable of is what you just saw. Game 18, the Leafs hosting the Philadelphia Flyers, and it was a disaster. And right now you're going, oh yeah, I remember that disaster against Philly. No, that's not even the right disaster against Philly. Brian Elliott was absolutely unreal in this game. The Leafs were shooting the lights out. They outshot the Flyers 40-32. The Leafs overcame a 2-0 deficit with Travis Dermott's first goal of the season and a goal from Willie Nylander. This one goes to a shootout just like the last time, except the Flyers get the last laugh in this one. Sean Couturier winning it for the Flyers in the shootout. Steve, that doesn't sound like such a disaster. Mitch Marner, high ankle sprain. Yeah, it was that game. He'd be out for a while, and it wasn't good. Well, their next game, life without Marner begins. I guess we gotta show the world what we're made of on the road in Chicago, second half of a back-to-back with Michael Hutchinson in net. The game was over before it started. 5:18 into the game, Chicago opens the scoring. They're up 1-0, and then they score 2 goals 10 seconds apart. 3-0. William Nylander's like, no, we're gonna do this, and he scores, and the Leafs are within 2, and Jonathan Toews scores a power play goal, and no, you're not. It's 4-1 after 1. It's no shot. And the Leafs, like they so often did in games where they were behind, they made it interesting. Nylander scored again. Tavares scored again. The Leafs even got within 1, but Brandon Saad scored late, and that basically dashed their hopes. Andreas Johnsson scored late as well. It just wasn't enough. The Leafs fall 5-4. Hutch saves 29 of 34. It's November 10th, and he still doesn't have a win. Not great, Bob. Which brings us to Game 20, the final game of this segment, and a lot of stories. Zach Hyman finally returning to the lineup, which is wonderful, except you still can't call the Leafs healthy. They just lost Marner. But at least you got Hyman back, right? At least you got Hyman back. I should probably mention that this is a road game against the Islanders. Well, during that road game, and remember, this is Hyman's first game of the season, Alexander Kerfoot finally just says, I can't do it after that giant hit from Jeff Carter against the Kings. He finally has to leave the game. And it turns out he needed some dental work. It was pretty bad. Kerfoot would end up missing the next 3 games. It was a big blow. The Islanders were up 2-0 after 1. The Leafs showed some fight though. Kasperi Kapanen and William Nylander. Nylander really showing some strength over these few games, and the Leafs didn't have many bright spots. It was tied 2-2. Beauvillier makes it 3-2 before the third. Brassard gets one. Cizikas gets one. It's over. And this was yet another game. That's a 5-2 game, but Tavares scores, Hall scores. Oh, we can do this. No, you can't. It's too late. The Leafs lose 5-4, but the score looked a lot closer than it really was. Ceci did not have a good game, not having the greatest stretch, not having the greatest beginning to his Leaf tenure. And Kyle Dubas afterwards comes out with the golden nugget of a quote about not understanding the referendum on Cody Ceci. So at the end of their second 10-game block of games, the Leafs limp into it. They've lost 3 straight. They lost in the shootout to Philadelphia. They lost big to the Chicago Blackhawks, and they lost big to the New York Islanders, even though 1-goal losses. But question for you, Leafs fans, you watching this video, is how many ifs are you willing to tolerate? They're losing. There's all these injuries. Kyle Dubas is getting snippy with the media, and there's these little rumors with Mike Babcock, but no one's actually expecting anything to happen, right? Well, games 21 to 30 are when things really popped off. So that's it for this edition of 70 in 7. What did you learn that you forgot? Or what did you remember from this? Was there anything I forgot? I would hate to forget anything. Before I wrap up, I want to give a special shout out to Robert Malloy. He helped me out with basically this whole project. I had intended on getting this done about a month ago, but then, you know, my son went and got born. And a huge reason why I'm able to do these at all is because of Robert's help with it. So thank you very much, Robert. So that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. Ooh, the next segment's a doozy. Games 21 to 30. Oh boy.